Okay, so this is the first day of a mixed review of all of the laws that we've learned with laws of exponents. So there is technically an order of operations that we need to follow in order to get the same result. So I'm just going to go quickly over those steps and then we'll practice some problems. So the first step is you want to take care of the power rule. This is whenever you have a set of parentheses raised to another power. And the rule for that is we're going to multiply or distribute that exponent on the outside to the exponents on the inside. If there are no exponents on a number or a variable, then you have to remember that there is a 1 there, okay? The second step is the product rule. Product rule is when things are being multiplied, you multiply the coefficients and then you add the exponents, okay? The quotient rule is third. The quotient rule is when you see division, you're going to simplify the coefficients but subtract the exponents. And I like to emphasize that if I like to circle the higher power and then perform that subtraction, and then whatever result I get, that's where it ends up either in the numerator or the denominator, whichever one was the higher power. And then you want to take care of any negatives exponents after you do these 3 steps. So technically the negative exponent goes here. And in order to make a negative exponent positive, you want to move it to the opposite position. So if the negative exponent's in the numerator, to make it positive, I move it to the denominator. If it's in the denominator, then I want to move it to the numerator to make it positive. And then the final step is to add or subtract. And you can only add and subtract if they are like terms, which means they have the same last name. There is one last rule, which is the 0 rule. This is kind of a floater in a sense that it could pop up anywhere that if we see it, it simplifies to 1. So let's go over some practice problems. There's not too many. Number 1. So the only rule I see here is adding and subtracting, step 5. There is no power rule, product rule, quotient, negative, nothing like that. All I see is subtraction. And the only way I can subtract these 2 values is because they have the same last name. A cubed b squared, a cubed b squared. So now I'm just going to read it from left to right. 3 minus 5 is negative 2, a cubed b squared. And there's your final answer. Number 2, the only rules I see are subtraction and addition. Remember, I can only add and subtract like terms. So the only like terms I see are 5xy and 2xy. That does not apply to negative 2x squared y. So xy, I'm going to add 5 plus 2 is 7xy. And then since I can't combine anything with negative 2x squared y, I'm just going to bring it down. And that's it. Number 3, subtract negative 2 from negative 6w. So be careful on the wording here. Yes, I am subtracting, but it's not negative 2w minus 6w. I'm subtracting negative 2w from negative 6w. And the only reason I can combine these two is because they both have w. Be careful here. Negative 6 minus negative 2w is like adding 2w. So negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4w. Okay, and honestly, these problems are pretty simple. They don't really have higher levels. These kind of have just 1 or 2 rules. So let's just go over them. Number 4, all I see is the product rule. Product rule says I multiply my coefficients, so 1 times 1 is 1. Then I'm going to add my exponents, so 4 plus 3 is 7. Number 5 is the power rule. The power rule says I'm going to distribute this 2 to the exponents on the inside. Now this one's tricky because there is a negative 1 as a coefficient, and that negative 1 has a power of 1. So 2 times 1 is 2, so this is negative 1 squared, and then 5 times 2 is 10, so this is x to the 10th. Well, I can't leave it like this, and so be careful here because this is not 1 times 1 and then tag on the negative. This is negative 1 times negative 1, which is positive 1, x to the 10th. Number 6 is simply the quotient rule. Quotient rule says I would simplify my coefficients, but there's none here, and then subtract my exponents. I like to circle my higher power, so 9 minus 5 is 4, and it would be in the numerator where the higher power was. Number 7, we have the product rule. Product rule says I'm going to multiply my coefficient, so negative 5 times negative 3 is positive 15. And then I'm going to add my exponent. So 3 plus 4 is 7. Number 8 is our first one we see where there's two rules. This one is the product rule and the power rule. But we have to take care of the power rule first based off order of operations. So I'm going to take care of the power rule right here. I'm going to distribute this 2 to all of the powers inside the parentheses. Remember, if something does not have a power, it technically has a power of 1. So 2 times 1 is 2, so this is negative 2 squared. 2 times 2 is 4, so this is x to the 4th. And 1 times 2 is 2, so this is y squared. And then I'm going to bring down this, the multiplying negative 3xy cubed. Now, technically, I need to clean up this negative 2 squared. So negative 2 squared actually cleans up to positive 4. Now I have my product rule. Product rule says I'm going to multiply my coefficients. So 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. And then I'm going to add my exponent. So 4 plus 1 is 5, so it's x to the 5th. And y is 2 plus 3 is 5 also. Last one on here. All I see is the product rule. So product rule says I multiply my coefficients. 2 times 5 is 10. And then I'm going to add my exponent. So on the A, negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. And B, 6 plus 2 is 8. Now here, I can't leave it like this. This is what I'm talking about, the negative rule. If I have a negative exponent, I have to move that variable to make it positive. Nothing else moves but the a that's attached to the negative 3. So 10 and b to the 8th are going to stay in the numerator. In order to make negative 3 positive, I'm just going to move it to the denominator, so a to the 3rd. And there's your final answer.